All right, excuse me. Okay, we're going to just get underway with the final two sessions this afternoon. I know there's a few folks that'll be filtering in the back in just a moment. So we're running ahead of schedule, which is always a good thing. We have, as mentioned, we've got a drinks reception at the end, 5 p.m. For an hour or so next door for anybody that would like to continue. And also for those that are attending the dinner workshop session at 6:30, that's downstairs in the Admiral's quarters. So I'll send you all information for that if you're signed up for it. We're going to hop right into our penultimate segment of the day, and this is a fun one as well. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Ryan Kramer. Ryan, he's not foreign with us. He participated on a panel with us, I believe, a year and a half ago on the Sister CX event. So it's great to have Ryan back. He's with Pharma. He's going to be presenting on From Inbox to Influence, the patient journey nobody mapped. And Ryan's got a really interesting background. His fun fact is right now he is learning Chinese. Is it Mandarin? Mandarin Chinese. And coincidentally, he's getting married in Spain soon as well. So there's a link there. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I'm sure he'll explain if you get a chance. Ryan's going to present on, again, From Inbox to Influence. There'll be a little bit of time at the end for Q&A and discussion. And please join me in welcoming Ryan as our penultimate speaker this afternoon.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, guys. The link between Spain and learning Mandarin is my fiance. So my fiance is Chinese, and we decided to get married in Spain this year. So I got my seer suit on. I'm ready for summertime. But thank you guys for being here at such the long part of the afternoon. I know a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about have already been discussed, but I want to reframe it in just a slightly different way in order to build on what we've already discussed. So the disclaimer, my views, perspectives, and opinions are my own. They're not my company's. Pharma is in the CNS space, and we have a portfolio of ADHD medications. So I'm going to be talking about ADHD, and you can see the lens from which I conduct my business and how some of the ideas in this presentation, where they're specifically coming from. We'll talk about search, social media, and influencers. So let's just dive right into it. So ADHD, the market analysis, right? So the disease state, a little bit of audience interaction here. How many people know someone with a diagnosis of ADHD? Perfect. That actually goes to my next topic, prevalence. Prevalence is very high. What does that mean for me as a consumer marketer? My disease state campaigns have a budget of $0 because it's so well known, right? The challenge is when we get down to the treatment options, generics often saturate our whole space. So everyone is really familiar with Adderall or Ritalin. These are products that have been on the market for such a long time. How does a particular person differentiate themselves as a brand within the marketplace? Are we still okay? And so treatment options, so kids and adults receive some form of treatment, but adherence is incredibly low. We have an adherence rate of only 22.9% of patients achieve a good medication adherence, and that means about 80% over 12 months. So as you can imagine, this business is very difficult. We have a really high generic market. We have low adherence. We have payers who are putting our medication through prior authorizations and step therapy. There's a lot of paperwork that goes into that for providers who are only seeing their patients for about 15 minutes. So really getting the HCP and patient to talk to one another and have the right conversation requires a lot of education on our part, right? There's a lot of ADHD education already out there, but what specifically about ADHD do we want to educate on, and where are they going to find that information? In a space that is actually so saturated, it's actually called ADHD talk, because TikTok is so full of ADHD information. How do we get that message out? And so I know we've covered this in great detail, but we live in both a digital and human world. I've highlighted search, social, and patient and HCP influencers because those are spaces that I'm particularly very passionate about. You know, we can have websites, access apps, CRMs, but how much time does a patient really get with their HCP? Only about 15 minutes. They're going to go to the pharmacy. They're going to have, 5 minutes with the pharmacist? Who is really influencing ADHD patients? It's going to be your LLMs, and it's going to be your patient influencers online. And so AI mode, LLMs have disrupted paid search. I named this title. I was going to say AI mode has replaced paid search. But don't tell my agency I said that because, of course, they're going to say, oh, continue to pay for paid search. But the reality is that we can't pay for a spot. We can't pay for a spot in an LLM response, right? We can't. There's no internal tracking metrics. Only 5 to 8% of what AI considers comes directly from your website. And this was a fundamental shift of my understanding as a marketer and how I'm reaching my patients. Because a lot of times you say, okay, build a website, improve the website. Well, we want them to have a better experience on the website, right? And the reality is 60 to 65% of searches are now zero-click. So what do I do with that as a marketer? I have to realize that my website is no longer the destination. It is the source of the information for LLMs. If they never click on my website, but they get the right information in the LLMs, I've done my job. And so a lot of our updates to our websites is in the background, is actually putting our brand information in a Q&A format so that the LLMs can read that and push that into the Google AI space. And so the different flavor of which I'm going to present LLMs, because I know they've been talked about a lot here, is really the hallucinations and this aspect of digital misinformation, especially in ADHD. There are so many people with ADHD in America. You can imagine how many searches for on AI saying, hey, I just got an ADHD diagnosis. What should I expect next? Hey, I just started on this medication treatment. What should I expect next? In a study this year, actually, some researchers had used inaccurate prompts across 200 clinical cases. Those LLMs across ChatGPT, Perplexity, hallucinated 50 to 83% of the time. And I am raising the red flag here because I know a lot of people here believe in AI, they trust AI, they say, hey, it is the future, and it is. I get it. We are headed down that pathway. But for a category like ADHD that is so large, that has so many people searching for accurate, scientifically sound information, this is actually a huge risk because, sure, it might be only a couple of percent that the LLMs are incorrect, but that couple of percent can impact quite a large number of patients. And so who bears that responsibility? When I go onto AI search and I type in, hey, what is my brand, or how is my brand different than another brand, and I'm seeing the LLMs pull from data sources that are not our own, who's responsible for that, right? Are the developers of Google responsible for that? They don't know who I am. I don't know who they am. We're not in contact. Are the deployers, the end users, the publishers, the regulators? I'm responsible. I take on that responsibility as someone who owns the brand to make sure that those sources are coming from scientifically sound, accurate, non-misleading data sources so that our patients can have the right information at the right time. And so what I would encourage you to do, if you haven't done it yet, there are plenty of platforms out there that run continuous AI searches on your brand. You can type in your brand website and you can say, hey, this is my brand website. I want you to run a prompt search. Here are the top 10, 15, 20 prompts that my patients are likely to ask about my brand, and it will rank, right? It will rank how well your brand is doing. And then you can see, is there any misinformation? And my second point here is I'm actually a big fan of the FDA in this. They want us to address misinformation. And they've given us guidelines for going on to whether it be social media or whatever that source is, and responding to that misinformation and saying, hey, no, that's incorrect. This is the correct information. Here are the sources. LLMs work best when AI observes the company's claim. And I think that this is really interesting because a lot of us are concerned with MLR or PRC, and we want to say, hey, we want to stay within our regulatory guidelines of making an accurate claim. But now we actually have an external source checking our facts. If we are making outrageous claims, and I know we won't, but if we are making claims on our website that actually differ than those outside, right? AI is going to pick up on that, and it's going to say, hey, the brand page says this, but Reddit is going to say this. So those LLMs are working best when these two things are together. And knowing which websites are going to rank the highest, where that information is coming from, and partnering with those websites is going to be key so that the information on your website, which is now your source, matches up with the external, and the LLM is going to match up and provide that right information. The next part is actually social media, something I'm really passionate about because that's where a lot of people with ADHD are on. And that's really listening first. I know we had Live World here, and I got to meet with them earlier. I think they're a great group of guys. Over the past year and a half, I have been listening to ADHD, people with ADHD, people who mention our medications. And it has been extremely rewarding to see if they find the right medication, that it can really be a life-changing experience for them. I recommend listening first because oftentimes there's shortages, there's stockouts, pharmacies might just distribute the wrong medication. There's issues, and we are actually able to respond in essentially real time to those issues and help that patient along that journey more quickly. And you might be thinking at this time, well, what about adverse events? What about people saying, I'm not doing well on the drug, or I had this side effect? I would say develop a good relationship with your drug safety team, right? Say, hey, I'm going to be doing this in marketing, and I'm going to report these things. And that provides that trust to the drug safety team, is saying, hey, we are going to do this, but we're doing this for the customer. We're going to take that risk to see how we can help our patients along that journey. I think, we heard earlier this morning from Rich about the patient experience, right? Helping at every single point. The conversational trend. So in ADHD, there's a lot of conversations. You had conversations about relationships. You have conversations about technology, sleep, social media, everything, all of these topics around the issue. And what we've started to do is actually build some of our brand content to help address some of those other topics. So it's not just about our product. It's saying, hey, you're going to go on vacation this summer. What are you doing? What are you doing? How are you managing your ADHD this summer when you're going to go on vacation? Or, hey, you're managing a relationship in February. How does your ADHD? How are you managing your ADHD then? Competitive intelligence and influencer discovery. For competitive intelligence, it's really helpful to understand. Hey, we learned on social media listening. Hey, one of our competitors is actually running a promotion, so maybe we should counter with another counter promotion. Or, hey, we have an influencer with hundreds of thousands of followers who just mentioned us. How can we then go partner with that influencer and say, hey, you already know about our medication. Maybe that's something that we want to do. So celebrity versus micro-influencers. When I first started getting into the marketing space, I noticed a couple of celebrities get on Instagram, get on TikTok, and start promoting medications. And I know all of us have been watching sports lately, and I'm sure we've seen a lot of celebrity, I'm seeing some head nods here, a lot of celebrity influencers. And I think that they are great for raising awareness. Hey, that celebrity is known for singing or sports or whatever it may be. But those celebrities come with really high financial investments. And for small pharma companies, we just don't have the resources to do that type of investment. Their fame comes from alternate sources, and oftentimes Yes, you'll do an event with them. Yes, you'll film it. Yes, you'll continue to promote that. But oftentimes those relationships are short-lived, right? Versus someone who I advocate for, or a group of people I would advocate for, are the micro and nano influencers. And the reason why is because they have built their whole platform on sharing their journey, right? They have walked us through their diagnosis story, their treatment journey, their, hey, I'm going to go to the doctor, pre-doctor, post-doctor. And they've really built these communities of trust. They respond directly to their comments and their DMs. And about a year and a half ago, I was interviewing a lot of these patient influencers, and I got to hear their stories. And unfortunately, the stereotype within the pharmaceutical industry is really based off of the misinformation that has been reported, right? In 2022, the top most popular ADHD videos were classified as misleading, right? So for the millions of people who have ADHD and the millions of posts, that's not the best, right? And as of 2025, we still have more content. And so influencers have really gotten this really bad rap within the pharmaceutical space because, one, they aren't educated, they're not a healthcare professional, they're not a pharmacist, and yet they continue to create content that actually could be harmful to patients, right? One of the ones that I think is most common is it says, if you relate to ADHD videos, you probably have ADHD. The reason why this is not correct is because ADHD actually has a specific diagnostic criteria, and you have to go see a psychiatrist to walk through that diagnostic criteria. You cannot self-diagnose yourself with one ADHD video on TikTok, right? However, if you pull back the cameras, if you pull back the filters and the likes and the shares, for digital content creators, 10% report feeling suicidal thoughts related to their work, and that's nearly double that of the broader US population. And the reason why is because the income stability options for influencers, as was spoken on this panel, is, hey, some of these people have chronic health conditions. Some of these people can't work because of ADHD or other reasons, and they need alternate income sources, right? So they are incentivized to continue to post in order to get more likes and shares, and that becomes their income stream. However, when that posting becomes their main source, that can crush their mental health. And so I'm here at a pharmaceutical conference in marketing advocating for the little guys, because oftentimes we go for the big guys. We go for the celebrities. We want the awareness of the top people in the field. If you find someone, a celebrity within your disease state, that's like the golden nugget. But I would actually argue that the micro-influencers and the nano-influencers are actually where you're going to get a higher engagement rate, higher trust, a lower investment rate, and actually a higher return on your investment if you decide to partner with them. And I understand that can be difficult because a lot of them don't understand the MLR process, and you have to go through negotiations with legal and contracting. And we have someone in this room who said that she can help with that, and I'm sure you'll be happy to work with her. But there was a recent study, just to kind of wrap up here, there was a recent study done by the Harvard Chan School of Center for Health Communication. Actually met the woman who is a part of this. Her name's Dr. Yarnell. They have done, this is not the only study, but they trained TikTok creators with mental health communications, and they basically proved that you can train TikTok creators mental health strategies and mental health communications, and the result was it improved 4.15%. And you might say, hey, that 4.15% improvement in the mental health of both the creators and the content and the responses, that's a really small percent. Why would we as a pharmaceutical company invest in 4.15% improvement in influencers? And my argument here is to say, well, when you have millions and millions and millions of people talking about the same thing, 4.15%, again, is really big. So this is actually straight off of the World Health Organization. Let's flatten the infodemic curve. When someone decides to share something and they're actually educated and they have influence within their microspheres of people, right? Hey, this person didn't send that rumor to the group chat. This person double-checked their facts. This person got their news from trusted sources. This influencer actually cited their sources. This influencer actually worked with the pharmaceutical company. This influencer was paid and disclosed that they were paid. And that was okay because that influencer said, hey guys, this pharmaceutical company is actually doing a lot of really good things. They're educating us. They're providing real, sound, scientifically accurate information. And here's what the science says. Right? We can reestablish that trust in pharmaceuticals by solving the problems of micro and macro influencers while also combating misinformation. And that's my main point here. Something I'm particularly passionate about is when we're thinking about the future of healthcare marketing, yes, LLMs, yes, improve your rankings, yes, do all of these things. We are really concerned about training AI. But why not train the actual people who have influence over our patients? And that's the argument that I want to leave with you today, or something to think about, is that those partnerships help fight that misinformation, right? I know there's a lot on the slide. I kind of like this guy in the middle. He has a little bullhorn. But those long-term financial contracts, the health education, what if we were to say to a group of micro and macro influencers, hey, we got you for the next year. Let's come together and create a content calendar that you guys can create around a yearly cycle so that you guys are not worried about your income, and we are now distributing information to the masses that's good and accurate. Key takeaways. AI mode has replaced LLMs. All of you know this. Make sure that you are taking care and doing your due diligence for misinformation and making sure that other sites, if there are other sites that are pulling in misinformation into LLMs, that you are going out and addressing those. Social media, listen to your patients. There has been so many times when I have gone on to Reddit and listened and just figured out what are the actual words patients are using to describe their experience, turned around and told my agency, hey, I want you to use these words because tomorrow we're going to advertise back on Reddit and it's going to say, hey, we've been listening and we know where you're coming from. And finally, influencers, as you guys know, root for the little guys. So that's all from me.
Thank you, Ryan. Wonderful. Nice wrap up there. Any quick questions or comments for Ryan at all? Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
I always got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I'm Susanna Foos from Insight. So I know ADHD is very obviously prevalent and all that stuff. How would you kind of pitch this for more rare diseases that are definitely along the lines of like HPV, HIV, ones that are more rare but also more stigmatized, where it's harder to have influencers because of the stigmatization of the disease?
Yeah, that's a great point. I have a follow-up question for you, actually. Is the condition chronic or not? Yes. So actually unfortunately, I hate to say it on stage, but that's a good thing because a lot of times patient influencers will build their platforms based off of chronic conditions. It's actually the acute conditions that often don't have influencers because there's not really a story. And so I think when it comes to highly stigmatized conditions, that is really a partnership between you and the influencers, sitting down and having an honest conversation of saying, hey, we're a pharmaceutical company. We obviously have a product that we think that is going to benefit patients. We want to either do a branded or unbranded campaign, but we need to sit down and have an honest conversation of what is that stigma and what are the messages that we need to create in order to not trigger that stigma. right? Of saying, as you brainstorm that together, I would encourage you, after you build those messages, take that out into a larger group, maybe of 50 patients, test those messages, saying, is this triggering that stigma? And if so, how can you change it? And if not, then run with it. But I would say it's often bringing those patient influencers in and having them guide your messaging. One second. We'll come after you guys. Yep. 1, 2, 3. Yep.
One over there as well.
So I think it's a fascinating approach. So for the micro and the nano influencers that you've worked with, I'm very curious to see how their followers have responded to them now working with a source material that they speak about. Is it benign? Does it actually boost their ratings? Do they get some pushback that now they're being influenced themselves? Can you comment on that? Thanks.
That's a great point. I just watched an influencer speak about one of our products on TikTok, and she has hundreds of thousands of followers. And the first thing that she said was, I have not been paid by Pharma. I have not been paid by Pharma, but I can't wait to tell you about this medication that's coming out, right? So there's actually a lot to lose, right? So for these patient influencers, they are putting their reputation on the line by partnering with Big Pharma. And I think that my only solve for this in my mind that I've come up with is to have, it's not just one influencer. I think when things happen in isolation, it's easy to point the finger and say, that influencer has partnered with big pharma, that influencer is bad, or that partner has been sold out. My recommendation here is actually to pull together a group or a conglomerate of some of the most influential nano and macro or micro influencers and say, hey, this group is coming together and partnering with this pharmaceutical company. We are building those brand messages together, and that shared decision-making can provide a good rebuttal to that finger-pointing of saying, no, actually, Tris Pharma is invested in the ADHD community. They have supported us, yes, financially, but the messages that they're sending are scientifically accurate, right? So I think if it's one influencer, that's difficult. If it's a group, you have a better chance. Yeah.
Great talk.
Thanks.
So obviously ADHD has a large prevalence. There are conditions, though, that mimic it. What, if anything, do you guys do to put guardrails in place to ensure that people aren't self-diagnosing, but they're getting clinical confirmation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So from like a unbranded perspective or from like a disease awareness, we don't really do anything in terms of diagnoses because it's so prevalent. What we always recommend is to talk to their psychiatrist or their HCP. And most of the DTC marketing efforts that I do, and I put through legal review, we always say at the end of the day, it's the doctor's decision on which medication that they're going to go on. So in terms of self-diagnosis, we realize that this is happening a lot, but we really leave that to we don't take ownership in trying to combat that specifically.
Wonderful. All right. One more. Sorry, Angela. Totally missed you there.
Just going off of what you were saying earlier about stigma, I find the best partners to work with are those that not only care about the negative comments, but they let it feed the algorithms. So when you're selecting, I want to find out what's your selection process for sourcing. Does that person have to already be on the drug for a certain amount of time and then you found them talking about you? Or do you put them through a protocol where you're like, okay, this person would be amazing. Let's put them through the proper channels to try the drug, give it time, make sure it works in their system. Like, do you have a two-prong approach? Because these people already are used to that stigma, in my experience, because I worked with estimates who have had the meanest comments thrown at them.
Yep.
And they're like, you don't have to like this, but clearly you do, if you're still watching me. So
Right.
I think they can represent your brand great if you choose wisely. So what's your selection process like?
Selection process is difficult, especially with leadership, because leadership is going to look at content creators much differently than we do. And so to your proposal of like putting them on our medication, we would never ever do that. That's obviously a physician decision.
Yeah.
I think that from a discoverability, that goes back to social media listening to understand, hey, has someone self-selected to share that HIPAA information publicly, that they have, hey, I'm on this particular product and here's my experience, and maybe promoting that. I would say the better route to go often is the unbranded route, is to say, hey, if you have an unbranded campaign or a disease that you want to educate the larger masses about, there's a lot less red tape around unbranded, especially with long ISIs and things like that. And I would say the selection process is obviously we take a look at their whole page, and is it someone who's likable, who is connecting with their audience, their engagement rates, all that kind of stuff. So we can talk after about selecting.
Yeah.
So, great.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much, Ryan. Appreciate
All
it.
right.
That was
Take
wonderful.
care. Thank you, guys.